Although defeat is bitter, it is never final. Amid the smoldering ruins of shattered nations, the Arab lands had long borne the scars of humiliation. 6 years earlier, the storm of war swept across the region like a furious desert wind. In the summer of 1967, Israel, like a hawk descending upon its prey, launched a lightning strike upon the Arab world, defeating the forces of Egypt, Syria, and Jordan in a matter of 6 harrowing days. From the ashes of that war, Israel expanded its dominion, claiming the Egyptian Sinai, the Golan Heights, and what remained of historic Palestine. The world watched as an occupation empire grew 3.5 times in size, while the Arab people stood in the shadow of defeat. But defeat, while bitter, is never final. In the secret chambers of Cairo and Damascus, in the hearts of men who had tasted the sting of loss, a new resolve began to grow. President Anwar Sadat of Egypt and President Hafez al-Assad of Syria, 2 men shaped by war and the weight of their nation's suffering, swore an unspoken oath. The land must be reclaimed. Honor must be restored. And so, in January of 1973, under the veil of secrecy, a pact was forged between them. They would unify their nations and strike as one, reclaiming what had been lost in the fires of 1967. Yet even in their unity, their visions were distinct. Sadat, a shrewd leader who had offered peace and been rebuffed, knew Egypt's military might be limited. His operation would be one of strategy, to reignite the attention of the world, to force open the gates of peace through the shock of battle. But Assad, his heart consumed by vengeance, harbored a deeper flame. For him, this operation was not just for the Golan Heights, but for the soul of Syria. This was an operation to erase the shame of 1967 and to strike fear into the hearts of those who dared occupy Arab land. As the autumn of 1973 approached, the 2 leaders chose their moment with the precision of hunters stalking their prey. The operation would come on Yom Kippur, a day when the streets of Jerusalem fell silent and no radios or televisions carried news of the outside world. The morning of October 6th dawned like any other. The sun bathed the deserts and mountains of the region in golden light, unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. Then, at the hour of reckoning, just after 2 in the afternoon, Egyptian and Syrian forces surged forward like a flood. From the north and the south, they struck Israel's army. In the Sinai, Egypt's forces, under the banner of Operation Badr, crossed the Great Suez Canal, overcoming the mighty Bar-Lev line. For Egypt, this crossing was more than just a military victory. It was a crossing of fate, a step toward reclaiming their dignity after many years of defeat. Far to the north, on the heights of Mount Hermon, Syrian soldiers pressed forward with fury. The winds howled across the Purple Line, the ceasefire boundary from 1967, as Syrian divisions overwhelmed the Israeli defenses and captured the vantage point known as Israel's Eye. Victory seemed within reach, and for a fleeting moment, the course of history appeared to favor the Arab armies. But history is rarely so kind. Within 24 hours, Israel, reeling from the initial assault, summoned its reserves. 2 armored divisions, hardened and fierce, turned the tide of battle. The Syrians, who had so valiantly pressed forward, found themselves retreating under the relentless Israeli counterattack. Damascus trembled as Israeli forces advanced, driving ever closer to the ancient city's gates. Yet, just as despair threatened to consume the Arab ranks, reinforcements arrived from Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and Jordan. Their soldiers, united under the banner of Arab Brotherhood, sought to halt the Israeli tide. But the enemy was relentless, advancing deeper into Syrian soil and positioning themselves to bargain not just for land, but for the very future of the region. As the ground battle raged, a new front opened in the skies. The Cold War giants, the United States and the Soviet Union, turned their eyes toward the Middle East. Weapons flowed like rivers, with both superpowers arming their allies, edging ever closer to a confrontation that could consume the globe. But it was not the battlefield that would decide the war. It was oil, the lifeblood of the world. On October 17th, the Arab oil-producing nations, wielding the most potent weapon they had, declared an embargo on the West. They reduced production and cut off supplies to the United States, demanding Israel's withdrawal from the lands occupied in 1967. The world's oil prices soared, and the streets of America and Europe fell into chaos as economies stumbled. The Arab world had found a new way to fight, not with tanks and guns, but with the power of their oil fields. The pressure mounted, and on October 22nd, as the fires of war still burned on the battlefields, the United Nations called for a ceasefire. Resolution 338 echoed through the halls of power, demanding an end to the bloodshed, a return to diplomacy. The war had come to a stalemate, but it was far from over. The land remained occupied, but the Arab nations had shown their strength, their resilience, and their willingness to fight for their future. The War of October 1973 would be remembered not only for its battles, but for the way it reshaped the world, forever altering the balance of power in the Middle East and beyond. The land had not yet been fully recaptured, but the spirit of its people had risen, and their struggle would continue, burning brightly as the desert sun. Several years have passed since the valiant operation undertaken to reclaim the occupied territories, yet Israel's grip on these lands remains firm. Today, the people of Palestine continue to endure the heavy yoke of oppression, subjected to relentless injustices. Neither the United Nations nor the great powers of the world have been able to halt these atrocities, as the cries of the oppressed echo unanswered across the international stage.